Why does POV humor work so well? Some points of view are playful and fun.
My name is Baby. What's yours?
While others take themselves way too seriously.
Treat blind mice, see how they run. Where the f*** are they going?
They can create humor through seemingly benign, mundane comments.
So there's probably like, you're just being a dick to somebody, aren't you?
Or through comments that don't even make sense.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must be full.
They can even make us laugh just by being authentic human reactions.
Let me go make you a better sandwich, a turkey sandwich on 47-grain bread with no mayonnaise.
One thing is for sure, audiences love them. There's something about a good point of view that creates opportunities for humor and drives audiences wild. In this video, we're going to be exploring why point of view humor plays such a huge role in comedy. I stumbled across a lot of great strategies for POV humor while I was making this video. But in this video, I want to focus on the big picture. So first, we're going to look at how point of view humor is different from a conventional joke. And then I'm going to show you the one rule that allows for point of view humor to be so effective and simple. So what is point of view humor? Point of view humor, as I use it here, refers to a situation in which none of the characters are trying to be funny. The humor depends entirely on the listener's point of view. When Andrew Dice Clay speaks, his character is not trying to be funny, at least not from his perspective. The same is true with sitcoms and funny movies. More often than not, the audience is the only point of view that sees something as being funny.
Clear for vector 324.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor? Howard radio clearance, over. That's Clarence, over. Over. Roger. Huh? Roger, over.
The characters that are on screen or on stage almost always either fail to recognize the humor of the situation or they're being completely serious. In standard jokes, the comedian uses setups to create the safety, and he uses punchlines in order to create a violation. The juxtaposition between them is known as a benign violation, or more simply, a comedic conflict. Point of view humor is probably the most naturally occurring type of humor in the world because it's so easy to use. It doesn't require creating your own comedic conflict from scratch. The comedic conflict is usually baked in from the very beginning. Point of view humor is easily the #1 tool that sitcom writers use to create humor. It's an incredibly effective way of creating humor in a way that is entirely believable to the audience. It doesn't require any specific types of setups or punchlines. It doesn't even require a good structure or good wording in order to be funny. That flexibility is what makes it so important to so many different kinds of comedy. You can watch more of our video on broken assumption jokes at creativestandup.com. So broken assumption jokes require that the audience's assumptions or predictions are incorrect in order for the joke to work. Point of view humor is the exact opposite. It requires that the audience is able to understand and correctly predict or empathize with someone's point of view. The assumptions that the audience makes about a character must be correct, or the humor won't make any sense. Take one of Bob Nelson's characters, the drunk guy hitting on a girl at the bar. For the humor to make sense, the audience must be able to make correct assumptions about the drunken man. Knowing that the character is drunk allows the audience to make predictions about his behavior. But more importantly, it allows the audience to understand and empathize. If you changed anything about Nelson's point of view, then the bit wouldn't make any sense.
Oh, I'm sorry. I must be full.
This strikes at the very heart of comedic conflict. There's a clear violation because the audience realizes that the sentence is really bizarre. Spilling water on himself is what sets up the punchline, but the fact that the character is drunk is what actually is selling the entire joke. Without being drunk, there's no safety. The audience wouldn't be able to justify a sober person saying something so ridiculous. Meaning that if a sober person said it, there would be way too much of a violation and not enough safety. If I had to boil everything down to one rule for great point of view humor, I would say that great point of view humor is about fully committing to a skewed reality. So there are two parts of that definition: fully committing and a skewed reality. Point of view humor is rarely about a person living in reality. A much more common and effective writing strategy is to place a straight person in a slightly warped reality and then allow the humor to arise naturally. This is what the improvisational game Let's Make a Date does so well. The game is set up like a typical dating game show, where a female contestant is trying to decide which bachelor to go on a date with by asking him questions. In the improv game, each of the three comedians is given a secret personality trait. Their job is to live that reality throughout the entire game, and to do it so well that the other player is able to guess what is written on their secret card. This sets up a situation in which the only way to get a laugh is to use POV humor. Conventional punchlines would fall flat here because the audience is going to judge everything the comedian says based on what they know about the point of view. If a line seems funny but it doesn't fit with the character, then the joke is going to fail because it won't make sense. There's too much violation and not enough reality. It's not that the character is a funny person, it's that their reality and the audience's reality don't match up quite right, creating a comedic conflict from the very beginning. Earlier, I said that conventional jokes almost always require comedians to introduce both the safety and the violation by themselves. This is where a lot of the pressure to be a good comedy writer comes from, being solely responsible for both sides of the comedic conflict equation. This isn't true for POV humor, though. Any improv comedian that has had the good fortune of being a part of an excellent improv troupe can tell you how effortlessly the humor flows throughout a scene. There's no stress when an improver is on stage. It seems counterintuitive to people who have never done improv comedy before, but the more control you give up, the funnier the scene gets and the more effortless it feels, both to the improver and to the audience. In fact, great improv flows so naturally that a lot of people have a hard time believing that it's not pre-scripted. The only reason a scene can flow so well is because an improv comedian is never solely responsible for both sides of the comedic conflict. Each improv comedian can simply live their skewed version of reality, which will naturally conflict with other people's reality. Because the comedic conflict is already baked in from the beginning, it takes away the stress of having to come up with something funny to say on your own. The improv comedian can live their reality and trust that their reality is going to naturally clash with someone or something. And that's what allows a scene to flow so well. Let's focus on the second half of that definition for great POV humor. The reality must be skewed. Let's be honest, laughing at a stupid person's expense is one of the joys of life. That's why fail videos are so popular. If you watch a fail video, your immediate question that you're asking yourself is, why on earth would you do that? And yet, if you were to actually get a response from that person, you would learn that the problem wasn't that they were doing something stupid. The problem was that their version of reality was not everybody else's version. Something about what they believed was not correct, and they made their decision based on that incorrect information. Whenever reality and a person's perceived reality are different, there's always going to be some type of tension or conflict. In this video, the comedic conflict comes from reality and perceived reality being different. The man's perceived reality is that the ice is thin, so in a weird way, it makes sense for him to do a cannonball. If he had intentionally tried to hit the ice as he did, then it wouldn't be funny, it would just be really weird. We'd still think he was really stupid, we just wouldn't laugh at that because there's no safety. Someone behaving in a way that is entirely irrational doesn't create comedic conflict. Only when there is some sense of safety as well, that's when there's comedic conflict. A skewed reality is a great tool for creating comedic conflict. Just as we've been learning in this video, the actual comments by Carrie's character aren't trying to be funny. The comedic conflict is already baked into the situation. The only thing Carrie needs to do after building this skewed reality is fully commit to it. Sometimes the tension is more subtle. Patrice O'Neal is known for being extremely authentic and real with his material. He was able to use POV humor in a way that allowed the audience to really identify with his point of view. If you tried to analyze Patrice O'Neal's material, it would be very difficult for you to find any kind of conventional punchlines. That's because the humor comes from both your ability to empathize with a point of view, as well as his ability to reveal some kind of hidden truth using that point of view. This video has focused on the underlying mechanic of point of view humor, fully committing to a skewed reality. Unfortunately, we weren't able to tackle the more subtle ways of using point of view humor. We could easily devote an entire video to how comedians like Patrice O'Neal can get the audience to identify with a point of view, or how a drunken character is able to create psychological safety and thus get away with saying the most bizarre or insulting things possible.
Last time you and I were side by side, somebody stepped on my tongue. You have many handicaps to overcome on your way to becoming the beloved star you think you are.
I also had to edit out a lot of great examples of point of view humor, the most painful being Maria Bamford and Pablo Francisco. But now I want to hear from you. What are some characters from movies, sitcoms, or stand-up comedy that you think are the best at creating comedic conflict? Do they create comedic conflict by fully committing to a skewed reality? Or do they create comedic conflict in a totally new way? Leave a comment below and let me know. And last, to learn more about comedic conflict or broken assumption jokes, which we talked about in this video, you can head over to creativestandup.com and take these lessons for free.